March 15th, 2019. Marina Bay, Singapore. Sarah Rogers was 32 years old, sitting in a glass-walled office on the 48th floor. She had flown 7,000 miles for this meeting. The view stretched across Singapore's skyline, glittering towers rising from tropical green. "This is exactly what I imagined," she told the man across from her. What she didn't imagine was that in 72 hours, she would be dead. Sarah had met Marcus Lim 6 months earlier at a networking conference in Los Angeles. She was struggling. Her marketing consultancy was barely breaking even after 2 years of grinding. Student loans, credit card debt, rent in a city that devoured money. She was smart, talented, and drowning financially. Marcus had approached her during the cocktail hour, well-dressed, confident, probably in his mid-40s. His business card said, "International Investment Consultant." He'd been charming without being pushy. "I work with investors in Southeast Asia," he explained. "They're looking for Western marketing expertise. Someone who understands American consumers, but can adapt strategies for Asian markets." Sarah had been interested, but cautious. They'd exchanged contact information. She'd Googled him later that night. His LinkedIn profile looked legitimate. Company website, professional headshots, client testimonials, everything checked out. She was excited about it, recalled Jennifer Park, Sarah's roommate and closest friend. She said it felt like her big break. Finally, someone who saw her potential. The opportunity Marcus described was compelling. A 3-month contract in Singapore, working with multiple clients, $80,000 plus housing, nearly triple what she was making. She could pay off her debts, build savings, maybe finally feel secure. They'd spoken on video calls throughout the fall. Marcus introduced her to what he called preliminary contacts, Asian businessmen who asked about her experience, her strategies. The conversations felt professional. Sarah had shown them her portfolio. They'd seemed impressed. "I had some concerns," Jennifer admitted. "The whole thing felt a bit too perfect. But Sarah did her research. She checked everything." Sarah had investigated the company Marcus claimed to represent. Pacific Rim Consulting Group appeared in business registries. They had an address in Singapore's financial district. When she searched the company name, she found mentions in business publications. Nothing extensive, but enough to seem legitimate. By January, Marcus was pushing for her to visit Singapore. "Meet the clients in person," he said. "They need to see you're serious before committing to the contract." He offered to cover her flight and accommodation. Just 5 days. Come see the operation. Sarah hesitated. Flying to Singapore was a big step, but the contract was worth $80,000. You didn't land opportunities like that by being timid. She booked time off from her freelance projects. She told her family she was exploring an international opportunity. Her mother, Linda Rogers, had worried. "I asked her if she knew this man well enough," Linda said. "She told me she'd done her homework. She said everything was legitimate." Sarah boarded her flight on March 13th. 16 hours to Singapore. She messaged Jennifer from the airport. "Here we go. Wish me luck." Marcus met her at Changi Airport, professional and welcoming. He wore a crisp business suit despite the tropical heat. His car was a black Mercedes, expensive and clean. He drove her through the city, pointing out landmarks. The Merlion statue, the Marina Bay Sands Hotel with its rooftop infinity pool, gardens by the bay with its futuristic super trees. "Singapore is the gateway to Asia," Marcus explained. "You position yourself here, you access a market of billions." He took her to her hotel, a mid-range business property in the financial district. The room was small but clean, overlooking a construction site. Marcus told her to rest, adjust to the time difference. They'd start meetings the next morning. That first evening, Sarah video called Jennifer. She seemed tired but optimistic. The jet lag was hitting hard, but Singapore was beautiful, modern, safe. Marcus seemed professional. The hotel was fine. She said she felt good about the decision, Jennifer remembered. She showed me the view from her window. She was laughing about how hot it was. She seemed happy. Sarah didn't know that Pacific Rim Consulting Group was a shell company. The address Marcus had given her was a mail forwarding service in an office building. The clients she'd spoken to on video calls were hired actors reading scripts. The testimonials on the website were fabricated. Marcus Lim wasn't an international investment consultant. He was a con artist with a pattern stretching across 3 countries. And Sarah Rogers had just walked into his trap. The next morning, March 14th, Marcus picked Sarah up at 9. They drove to what he called the main office. Sarah expected a proper corporate space, conference rooms, and receptionists. Instead, Marcus pulled into a residential high-rise in the Orchard Road district. "We're meeting the senior partner at his residence," Marcus explained. "He works from home mostly. Very successful, very private." The building was luxury, 30 floors of glass and steel. Doorman in the lobby, marble floors, expensive art on the walls. They took the elevator to the 28th floor. Marcus led her down a carpeted hallway to Unit 2804. The apartment was expensively furnished. Floor-to-ceiling windows, designer furniture, abstract art. But it felt empty somehow. No personal photographs, no lived-in clutter. Like a hotel suite trying to look like a home. A man emerged from the bedroom area. Chinese, maybe 60 years old, wearing casual clothes despite the supposed business meeting. Marcus introduced him as Mr. Wang, managing director. Wang barely acknowledged Sarah. He spoke to Marcus in rapid Mandarin. Sarah didn't understand the language, but she caught the tone. This wasn't a business discussion. Something felt off. "Mr. Wang needs to reschedule," Marcus said suddenly. "Family emergency. We'll meet tomorrow instead." They left quickly. Sarah felt confused, slightly embarrassed. The whole interaction had lasted maybe 90 seconds. In the elevator, she asked Marcus what happened. "Don't worry about it," Marcus said. His tone had changed slightly. Less warm, more dismissive. "These things happen. Wang is old-fashioned, particular about timing. We'll regroup." He drove her back to the hotel. The planned afternoon meetings were canceled. Marcus claimed schedule conflicts, miscommunications. He promised tomorrow would be better organized. Sarah spent the rest of the day alone, walking around Marina Bay, trying to shake off her unease. That evening, she messaged her mother. "First day was weird. Meetings got rescheduled, hoping tomorrow was better." Linda Rogers texted back asking if everything was okay. Sarah replied that it was fine, just jet lag and adjustment. She didn't want to worry her family. She'd flown 7,000 miles. She needed to give this a fair chance. "Looking back, I wish she'd trusted her instincts," Linda said later. But Sarah was determined to succeed. She didn't want to give up at the first hiccup. March 15th started more promisingly. Marcus picked her up earlier, 8 in the morning. They drove to a proper office building this time, 30 floors in the financial district. Real companies, real businesses. Sarah felt relieved. The office on the 48th floor had glass walls and city views. Minimalist furniture, conference table, whiteboards. 2 men were already there when they arrived. Both Chinese, both in business suits, both smiling and professional. Marcus introduced them as Daniel Xu, and Kevin Tan, potential clients. For the next 2 hours, they discussed marketing strategies. Sarah presented her portfolio, explained her approach. The men asked questions, took notes, seemed engaged. This felt real. This felt like the legitimate business opportunity she'd expected. They broke for lunch. Marcus suggested a restaurant nearby, celebrating what he called a successful meeting. The 4 of them went together, Xu and Tan joining them. The restaurant overlooked the harbor, expensive and elegant. During lunch, the wine flowed freely. Marcus ordered bottle after bottle. Sarah tried to pace herself, but the men kept refilling her glass. The conversation stayed light, friendly. They talked about Singapore, about travel, about cultural differences between America and Asia. "She called me that afternoon," Jennifer recalled. "She sounded tipsy but happy. Said the meetings went well. Said she was having lunch with the clients. I asked if she felt safe. She said yes, everything was professional." After lunch, Marcus suggested they continue discussions at another location. "Kevin has a property, we're considering for the company expansion," he said. "Good opportunity to see it, give your marketing perspective." They drove to another residential building, this one in the River Valley area. 42 floors, modern architecture, rooftop amenities. Xu and Tan followed in a separate car. The unit was on the 39th floor, another expensive apartment, another empty feeling. But the wine had dulled Sarah's instincts. The afternoon felt hazy, dreamlike. She was tired from jet lag and alcohol. She wanted to be professional, to see this through. They stood on the balcony, looking at the view. Singapore spread below them, glittering in the late afternoon sun. The men talked about property values, investment potential. Sarah nodded along, trying to focus. She didn't notice Marcus positioning himself near the door. She didn't notice Xu and Tan moving closer to her. She didn't realize until too late that something was terribly wrong. "According to the investigation, what happened next was coordinated," explained Detective Inspector Rahman Ismail, the lead investigator on Sarah's case. "These men worked together, planned together. This wasn't spontaneous." Sarah's body was discovered at 4:47 p.m. on March 15th by a security guard doing rounds in the building's rear service area. She had fallen 39 floors. She died instantly. The Singapore police force responded within minutes. The River Valley building was sealed. Residents were questioned. Security footage was pulled immediately. Detective Inspector Rahman Ismail arrived at the scene at 5:15 p.m. He was a 15-year veteran of the Criminal Investigation Department. He'd worked dozens of deaths. This one immediately troubled him. Foreign national, alone in Singapore, found dead at a residential building where she had no connection, Rahman recalled. That combination raises red flags immediately. Sarah's purse was still in the apartment on the 39th floor. Her phone, wallet, passport, everything. The apartment was leased under a false name. The security footage showed 4 people entering together around 2:30 p.m. 3 men, 1 woman. The woman was clearly Sarah. The men wore baseball caps, faces partially obscured. The footage showed the 3 men leaving separately at 4:32 p.m., 4:35 p.m., and 4:38 p.m. They used different exits. They moved quickly, purposefully. No woman with them. "This was not suicide," Rahman said. "Everything about the scene suggested foul play." The apartment's balcony railing was 42 inches high, standard for Singapore building code. An accident was extremely unlikely. Sarah would have had to climb or be lifted over the railing. The position of her body, the forensics, everything suggested she'd been pushed with force. Rahman's team worked through the night. They identified Sarah through her hotel registration. They contacted the U.S. Embassy. They tracked down Marcus Lim through his connection to Sarah's hotel reservation and flight booking. By midnight, as now, on March 15th, police had located Marcus's apartment in the Navina district. They executed a search warrant at 1:15 a.m. on March 16th. Marcus wasn't there. What they found instead was evidence of a sophisticated fraud operation. Fake business cards from dozens of companies. Multiple passports under different names. Laptop computers with files showing previous victims. Bank accounts in multiple countries. He was a professional con artist, Rahman explained. We found evidence of at least 15 other schemes over 5 years. Women were his primary targets. He'd promise business opportunities, romantic relationships, investment returns. Then rob them or worse. The investigation revealed Marcus Lim's real name was Huang Wei, a Malaysian national with warrants in 3 countries. The 2 men with him that day, Daniel Shu and Kevin Tan, were associates in his criminal network. All 3 had fled Singapore within hours of Sarah's death. Sarah's hotel room told a heartbreaking story. Her laptop opened to email drafts she'd been writing, updates to her mother about the meetings, a journal entry about her hopes for the contract. Clothes still in her suitcase, neatly folded. A book on Southeast Asian business culture she'd been reading. She was so prepared, Linda Rogers said. She'd researched everything. She'd bought proper clothes for hot weather. She'd studied Singapore's culture. She wanted to do this right. The U.S. Embassy contacted Linda and Sarah's father, Robert Rogers, on the morning of March 16th. The news devastated them. Their daughter had flown to Singapore for a business opportunity. Now they were being told she'd been murdered. I kept asking how this happened. Linda remembered. How did we not see this coming? Sarah was smart. She was careful. How did this man fool her? Detective Rahman's investigation uncovered the full scope of the deception. Pacific Rim Consulting Group was registered legitimately, but was a shell. The address was a mail forwarding service. The website was professionally designed, but entirely fraudulent. The testimonials were fake. The clients Sarah had spoken to were actors Huang paid through dark web marketplaces. He invested significant money into making this look real, Rahman explained. He understood that educated, cautious people would research. So he made sure there was something to find. The video calls Sarah had with supposed clients? Huang had hired people through freelance platforms, given them scripts, told them it was for a business role-play training. They had no idea they were part of a fraud scheme. The LinkedIn profiles Sarah checked? All fabricated, connected to other fake accounts to create the illusion of a professional network. Huang had dozens of these interconnected identities. Modern con artists are sophisticated, said Dr. Rachel Tan, a forensic psychologist who consulted on the case. They understand digital due diligence. They create elaborate digital footprints that satisfy basic investigation. The victims aren't stupid or careless. They're being targeted by professionals. The investigation determined that Huang's plan had been robbery from the start. Get Sarah to Singapore, isolate her, steal her banking information and assets, then make her disappear. But something went wrong in the apartment that afternoon. We believe Sarah realized what was happening, Rahman said. She may have tried to leave or call for help. There was a struggle. She fought back. That's when they pushed her. Forensic evidence supported this. Sarah had defensive wounds on her hands. Her blood was found in the apartment. The balcony showed signs of a struggle. Within 72 hours of Sarah's death, Interpol had issued red notices for Huang Wei, Daniel Shu, and Kevin Tan. Their photos and information were distributed to border controls across Southeast Asia. The manhunt began. Huang Wei had been running cons for almost 2 decades. The investigation into his background revealed a pattern of escalating crimes across Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and the Philippines. Born in Kuala Lumpur in 1975, Huang had started with small-scale credit card fraud in his 20s. By his 30s, he'd graduated to investment scams. He'd served 2 years in a Malaysian prison in 2008 for securities fraud. After release, he'd moved to Thailand and reinvented himself. He was intelligent, multilingual, and charming, Rahman said. He understood psychology. He knew how to build trust, exploit vulnerabilities, create urgency. The investigation found evidence of at least 8 victims before Sarah. Most were women between 25 and 40. All were professionals with moderate success but financial pressure. All had been targeted through fake business opportunities or investment schemes. None of the previous victims had been killed. Most had been robbed and abandoned. A few had been held briefly, then released once Huang had drained their accounts. Sarah's death represented an escalation. Something changed, Dr. Tan explained. Either Huang became more desperate or more dangerous. Sarah's resistance, her fight, triggered a violent response. Daniel Xu and Kevin Tan were relative newcomers to Huang's operation. Xu was a Singaporean citizen with a gambling debt problem. Huang had recruited him 6 months earlier, promising easy money. Tan was a Malaysian national, unemployed and struggling, willing to do whatever paid. The 3 men had worked together on 2 previous schemes before Sarah. Both had been simple robberies. Lure foreign business people with fake opportunities, rob them in private locations, disappear. Neither previous victim had been seriously harmed. Xu and Tan claim they didn't know Huang would hurt Sarah, Rahman said. They say the push was spontaneous, unplanned. I don't believe that entirely. They participated. They helped carry it out. After Sarah's death, the 3 men split up immediately. They'd had an escape plan. Separate departures, different routes, different destinations. Within 6 hours of her death, all 3 had left Singapore. Huang flew to Manila under a fake passport. Xu took a bus to Johor Bahru, then disappeared into Malaysia. Tan caught a flight to Jakarta. They'd coordinated their exits to avoid detection, using cash and false identities. But Singapore's police were fast. By March 17th, authorities had identified all 3 men. By March 18th, Interpol had issued red notices. By March 20th, border controls across Southeast Asia had their photos and information. The manhunt focused heavily on Huang. He was the ringleader, the architect of the scheme. He had resources, contacts, fake identities. He could disappear effectively if given time. We had 48 hours, maybe 72 before he'd vanish completely, Rahman said. After that, he could be anywhere in the world. The break came on March 21st. Philippine immigration flagged a passport used at Manila Airport. The photo matched Huang Wei despite the different name. He was attempting to board a flight to Ho Chi Minh City. Philippine authorities arrested him at the gate. He didn't resist. He had $40,000 in cash in his luggage, multiple passports, 3 cell phones, a laptop with encrypted files. When we arrested him, he was calm, said Agent Carlos Reyes of the Philippine National Police. He acted like being caught was just a business setback. No remorse, no emotion. Very cold. Extradition proceedings began immediately. Singapore requested Huang be returned to face murder charges. The Philippine government moved quickly, fast-tracking the legal process. By March 28th, Huang Wei was on a plane back to Singapore, handcuffed and under heavy guard. Daniel Xu was arrested in Penang, Malaysia on March 24th. Malaysian police had tracked him through cell phone records and witness reports. He'd been staying in a cheap hotel, running out of money, making panicked calls to associates. Kevin Tan was caught in Jakarta on March 26th. Indonesian authorities found him at an internet cafe, trying to access international bank accounts. He'd been sloppy, desperate. When arrested, he immediately asked for a lawyer and refused to speak. All three men were in Singapore custody by March 29th. The investigation had moved with remarkable speed. Rahman credited interagency cooperation and clear evidence. We had them on security footage. We had forensic evidence from the apartment. We had Sarah's communications showing the fraud scheme. The case was strong. Sarah's family flew to Singapore on March 20th. They'd waited for diplomatic clearances and police authorization. Linda and Robert Rogers arrived in a city their daughter had visited for less than 72 hours before being killed. Walking into that police station was the hardest thing I've ever done, Linda said. Having them show us photos, evidence, explaining what happened. It was unbearable. The Rogers met with Detective Rahman multiple times. He walked them through the investigation, the evidence, the timeline. He assured them the case was strong, that justice would be served. Detective Rahman was compassionate, Robert Rogers recalled. He didn't sugarcoat anything, but he treated Sarah with dignity. He made clear this wasn't her fault. Sarah's body was released to her family on March 25th. They held a small memorial service at a Singapore chapel before flying her home to Los Angeles. A larger service was held in California on April 2nd, attended by over 200 people. Everyone loved Sarah, Jennifer Park said at the service. She was brilliant and kind and funny. She worked so hard to build something, and some monster took that away from her. The trial of Huang Wei, Daniel Xu, and Kevin Tan began on September 4, 2019 in Singapore's High Court. All three faced murder charges. The prosecution also charged Huang with fraud, theft, and criminal conspiracy. The case drew significant media attention. Singapore's English-language newspapers covered it extensively. International media picked up the story. Sarah's death became a cautionary tale about international business scams and women's vulnerability. The prosecution's case was straightforward and devastating. Security footage showed Sarah entering the apartment with three men. Footage showed the three men leaving without her. Her body was found 39 floors below within minutes. Forensic evidence proved Sarah had been on the 39th floor balcony. Her blood was in the apartment. She had defensive wounds. The trajectory of her fall was consistent with being pushed with force, not jumping or falling accidentally. The digital evidence showed the elaborate fraud scheme. Huang's laptops contained files on Sarah and multiple other victims, email accounts, fake business documents, scripts for the actors he'd hired. Everything documented in chilling detail. The prosecution had overwhelming evidence, explained legal analyst Michelle Coe, who covered the trial. The defense's only hope was arguing for degrees of culpability. Huang Wei's defense strategy was predictable. He claimed Sarah's death was accidental, that she'd fallen during an argument. His lawyers argued manslaughter, not murder. They portrayed him as a con man who'd gotten in over his head, not a killer. The prosecution demolished this argument. They presented evidence of previous victims, escalating patterns of violence, detailed planning. They showed Sarah's injuries were inconsistent with a simple fall. They demonstrated the coordinated escape plan. This was premeditated, the prosecutor argued. These men lured Sarah Rogers to Singapore with deliberate lies. They isolated her. They got her drunk. They brought her to that apartment with intention. When she fought back, they killed her. Xu and Tan's defenses tried to shift blame to Huang. Both claimed they didn't know he would hurt Sarah. Both said they thought it was just a robbery. Both said the push was Huang's decision, his action. The prosecution argued all three were equally culpable. They'd participated in the scheme. They'd helped isolate Sarah. They'd been present when she died. They'd helped cover it up and flee. You don't get to claim innocence when you participate in a crime that results in murder, the prosecutor stated. All three men are guilty. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Witnesses included Detective Rahman, forensic experts, Sarah's family, and several of Huang's previous victims who flew to Singapore to testify. Watching those women testify was powerful, Michelle Coe recalled. They described identical patterns. Huang's charm, his fake businesses, his elaborate lies. Sarah was just the tragic escalation of a long criminal career. Linda Rogers testified on October 15th. She described Sarah's excitement about the opportunity, her thorough research, her careful nature. She read portions of Sarah's emails, her daughter's optimism and hope. My daughter did nothing wrong, Linda said from the witness stand, her voice breaking. She was trying to build a career. She was trying to succeed. These men murdered her for it. The jury deliberated for 3 days. On October 24, 2019, they returned their verdict. Huang Wei, guilty of murder, guilty of fraud, guilty of criminal conspiracy. Daniel Xu, guilty of murder, guilty of criminal conspiracy. Kevin Tan, guilty of murder, guilty of criminal conspiracy. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Singapore has strict justice for violent crimes, particularly those involving foreigners. The judge was harsh and clear. Huang Wei was sentenced to life imprisonment with mandatory caning. He would serve minimum 30 years before parole eligibility. The judge called him a predator who escalated from fraud to murder and a danger to society. Daniel Xu received 25 years with caning. The judge acknowledged his lesser role but emphasized his participation made him complicit. Kevin Tan received 22 years with caning. Similar reasoning, less culpable than Huang, but guilty nonetheless. The sentences reflected the severity and the planning, Michelle Coe explained. Singapore doesn't tolerate crimes against visitors. Tourism and business travel are vital. The system wanted to send a message. Sarah's family attended the sentencing. Linda Rogers read a victim impact statement describing their loss. She talked about Sarah's dreams, her kindness, her potential. She talked about the grandchildren she'd never have, the life her daughter would never live. These men took everything from us, Linda said. They took our daughter. They took our future. No sentence can give that back. Outside the courthouse, Robert Rogers spoke to reporters. He thanked Detective Rahman and the Singapore police. He thanked the prosecution team. He said justice had been served, though it couldn't bring Sarah back. We hope other families won't experience what we have, Robert said. We hope people understand that these predators are sophisticated. That being cautious isn't enough. That evil hides behind charm. The case led to changes in how Singapore handles foreign business visitors and online fraud. The police department created a task force specifically for investigating international business scams. They developed protocols for verifying business opportunities and protecting vulnerable travelers. Sarah's case exposed gaps in our system, Detective Rahman said. We had to do better. The U.S. State Department added Singapore-specific warnings to its travel advisories. guidance on verifying business opportunities, checking company registrations, not traveling alone for initial meetings. Sarah's story became a cautionary example in the advisory. Several online platforms that Huang had used to hire actors and create fake identities implemented stricter verification systems. LinkedIn enhanced its false profile detection. Freelance sites added warnings about potential criminal misuse. The internet makes sophisticated fraud easier, Dr. Tan explained. Criminals can create elaborate false realities with modest investment. We have to adapt our defenses. Jennifer Park became an advocate for fraud awareness. She gave talks at business schools and networking events. She shared Sarah's story, explaining how a smart, careful person could still be deceived. People assume victims are naive or careless, Jennifer said in a 2020 interview. Sarah was neither. She researched everything. She took precautions. But these criminals are professionals. They're steps ahead. The Rogers family established the Sarah Rogers Memorial Scholarship at USC, where Sarah had earned her marketing degree. The scholarship supports young women pursuing international business careers. It includes mandatory safety training and fraud awareness education. We wanted something positive from this horror, Linda Rogers explained. We wanted Sarah's name connected to helping others, not just to her death. In November 2020, Jennifer published a detailed article about Sarah's case in a business magazine. She interviewed fraud experts, law enforcement, and other victims. The article went viral, shared widely across social media and professional networks. I wanted people to understand the sophistication of these schemes, Jennifer said. I wanted Sarah's death to mean something. The article prompted several other victims of similar scams to come forward. Some had been targeted by Huang Wei under different identities. Others had encountered different criminals using identical tactics. A pattern emerged. There's a whole ecosystem of international business fraud, explained FBI Special Agent Maria Torres, who investigated several U.S. cases. These criminals share tactics, information, even victim lists. They're organized and sophisticated. Huang Wei never showed remorse. In a 2021 prison interview, he remained cold and calculating. He claimed Sarah's death was accidental. He said he'd planned only to rob her. He blamed her for fighting back. If she'd cooperated, she'd be alive, Huang said. The interviewer noted his complete lack of empathy. Daniel Xu and Kevin Tan showed more contrition in their prison interviews. Both said they regretted participating. Both claimed they'd been desperate and manipulated by Huang. Both expressed sorrow for Sarah's death. Whether their remorse was genuine or performative remained debatable. They'd participated in the scheme. They'd helped lure Sarah to her death. Their regret couldn't change that. Today, Sarah's case remains one of Singapore's most prominent international business fraud murders. It's studied in criminal justice courses, discussed in fraud prevention training, cited in travel safety materials. Sarah's death exposed a darker side of international business, Michelle Coe reflected. We like to think opportunity and entrepreneurship are purely positive. Sarah's story reminds us that predators exploit those aspirations. Linda and Robert Rogers visit Sarah's grave every week. It's in a Los Angeles cemetery overlooking the city where their daughter built her business and dreamed her dreams. The gravestone is simple. Sarah Rogers, 1986-2019, beloved daughter, friend, and dreamer. We miss her every day, Linda said in a 2022 interview. The pain doesn't go away. You just learn to carry it. The case remains a stark reminder that evil often wears a professional mask, that opportunities can be traps, that charm can hide malice, that the vulnerable, especially women traveling alone, especially those desperate for success, remain targets. Sarah Rogers followed a business partner to Singapore, believing in her future. She found death instead, pushed from a rooftop by men who saw her as nothing more than a mark. Her story is a tragedy. It's also a warning. Be careful who you trust. Verify everything. Tell people where you're going. Don't travel alone to initial meetings. Listen to your instincts. And understand that even the most cautious, the most intelligent, the most prepared can still be deceived. Sarah deserved better. She deserved the future she'd worked so hard to build. Instead, she became a statistic in the catalog of international fraud victims. Her family, her friends, and everyone who knew her carry that loss. The men who killed her will spend decades in prison. That's justice. But it's cold comfort to those who loved Sarah Rogers. Nothing can bring her back. Nothing can restore what was taken that afternoon in Singapore when 3 criminals decided a woman's life was worth less than their criminal enterprise. Sarah's story ends in a Singapore cemetery, then in Los Angeles, then in the memories of everyone who knew her. It ends in cautionary tales and safety warnings. It ends in scholarship funds and advocacy efforts. It ends in the hearts of her parents, who lost their only child to senseless violence. But perhaps it doesn't have to end there. Perhaps Sarah's story can save others. Perhaps her death can prevent future tragedies. Perhaps the awareness her case generated makes someone think twice, check more carefully, trust their instincts. That would be something. Not redemption. There's no redeeming this loss. But meaning, purpose, a way for Sarah's life and death to matter beyond the bare facts of the case. Her family hopes for that. They work toward it. They share her story, painful as it is, so others might be spared. That's their mission now. That's Sarah's legacy. Remember her name. Remember her story. And remember that behind every cautionary tale is a real person who deserved better. Sarah Rogers deserved better.